Hey everyone, welcome to my new podcast, Unmuted. This is Stephen, everyone.
Well, hello.
And I'm Tanya.
Amazing. Well, Tanya, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure, and I'm excited to have some unmuted conversations with you.
100%. Look, it's very spontaneous, us doing that. And I've always felt in my life I didn't have a voice. And what I've learned throughout the last couple of years and experience in my life, that you just got to dive into the deep end and learn how to swim. And that's what we're doing now, because I know how much I have to say and I want you all to hear it. So this is what we're doing.
And that's what it's all about, right? Like coming up with a vision, a dream, an idea, and taking an action on it.
Yeah.
I have this phrase I love to use, passion plus action equals power. If you have passion but you don't take action, you don't access full power. Okay, if you're taking action but you don't have the passion, you're not accessing the full power. And you had a passion to do this, took action, and this is how you access power. So, well done.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm Latina at heart, so I'm very passionate, very vibrant, love doing things. Whatever I do it, you know? If you haven't known yet. But yeah, I'm so excited. There's so many things in my life that, you know, I just want to get started with. And like one of them I already have. I wrote a book with one of my friends a couple years ago. And this year is going to be the year that I want to get it published. And we just want to like focus on like having that voice, you know, and being able to just express what's on my heart and sharing that with people, because I think there's such a beauty. I'm all about deep connections, and I love, you know, shallow talk is fine here and there, but I just love scratching beyond that and seeing who people really are, their true authentic self. And I think, you know, everyone experiences so much in life, in experiences trauma or like hardships, and I think, you know, suffering creates perseverance, and perseverance creates character, and character produces hope. And, you know, I think I'm just at this state now where I'm like, I have hope, you know, and I think I just want to like walk alongside that with people, and I want to help them to become the person of themselves that I know they can be, and I want to help them to just see who they really are and their identity in God and in themselves, you know?
I have a challenging thought. So you said you've got hope. Yeah. And I believe if you don't have hope, you kind of have nothing, right? Like you need to have hope in the things that you do and in yourself. But you can hope in one hand and you can shit in the other and see which one fills up first. So again, we can hope all we want, but unless we're taking action towards these things that we're hopeful for or about, then you just have a handful of shit. You know what I mean? What are your thoughts on that?
No, it's true. And I think, honestly, hope is like, it's related to like aligned with imagination and having dreams and visions, as you said before. But I do believe, you know, we can dream as much as we want, but if we're not living that and not doing that, it's not going to go any step further. I think you gotta like just multiple steps to that. But first is like the vision and the dream. But then, as we're doing today, without any notice, fucking do it. Let's do it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So yeah, 100% agree with that.
It's a bit controversial, right? And there's so many of these like very floaty type concepts around manifestation, creating a reality, hope. In the spiritual world and around holistic health, it's very much about surrender and trust. But I became very manipulated in the industry, the spiritual industry and communities on, well, why is it that if I do this Kundalini Kriya, or why is it that I do this movement, it detoxes my gallbladder, or it'll help me achieve this in my life? And I had many teachers tell me, well, Stephen, because that's just how it is. You got to have hope. You have to trust. You need to surrender. And sometimes I feel like these incredibly powerful words like surrender and trust are very loosely talked about and thrown around as a way to not actually discuss or conversate the matter at hand. And same thing with hope. If we don't know how to respond to somebody in a troubling time that they're going through, or a trauma that they've been through, or even just a challenge, well, if we don't know how to respond or how to hold that space for somebody, then it's very easy to turn to these powerful words, but without giving a lot of energy behind it. Like, you just have to hope, just trust, just surrender. So how would you respond to somebody that needs hope, but rather than just saying the word, how could you bring something behind it? How do you support people in their hope? Just like, or even yourself. How do you support yourself when you have a hope or a dream, right? They tend to go hand in hand, right? Hopes and dreams. So how do you support a hope that you have?
That's a great question. I think the first thing for me is always like writing it down. And if we're not actually, the goals that we have in a dream set, like we're going to turn a hope and dream into a goal, right? So if we're not writing down our goals, actually studies say that 75% are not going to go through this goal. So we actually have to be more specific in what we want and how we're going to get there, right? So I think it's number one, trusting yourself, and not having that codependency in like with other people. Because I think we're like, oh, we have home, let's hope, but now we got to find the right person to like help us to achieve that. But understanding that we don't need anyone else but ourselves to achieve that. And obviously for me personally, like I have experienced that, and I think putting my hope into God, but also my hope into myself, and knowing that eventually I just have to start it and I will be able to get there. So yeah, I think putting them down into something more realistic, achievable, but also finding the right people to have these conversations with. For me, I'm an extrovert and I'm really into the Myers-Briggs, personality tests. But for me, how I process things is either by journaling, but also mostly more with like talking out with people. And I think that's something that's really helping me, kind of like you said before, word vomiting.
Right.
And like accessing and unlocking our subconscious in like not being into our mind, because I'm always in my mind and I'm like thinking so much, but I'm like, actually, how can I get to this depths of knowing who I actually are without the external noise? Right. And I think I'm in Bali right now, and that's why I'm so tan. But yeah, I think when I first came to Bali, I was like, hey, I just need to get rid of that excess noise around me. And that one of the reasons I came to Bali is because of that. And I got that great advice from one of the cab drivers, and I'm like, give me one like life advice, because I love knowing and learning about cultures. I love learning about where they're coming from. I'm interested in people's stories, not because of what they're producing, but I'm like, I want to really get to know behind the layers of what they're showing me. And obviously, like, you've got to create a safe space for that, but I'm like, I want to get to know you, like the real you. And I asked him, and he's like, life is easy, Tanya, and don't make it difficult.
The most simple kindergarten response.
Literally.
But it's, guys, the simple things are actually much more profound than these really complex ones.
I know, right?
Just don't make it difficult.
And it was funny. And I was like, oh, everyone in the Western world really like says, hey, like life is difficult, but it's not. Life is easy and we are making it difficult. And I said, but what if life is hard? Then he said, slow down. And there's been so much beauty that I've experienced in slowing down, eliminating hurry in my life, because just there's so much you can do. But, I feel like sometimes you're just picking and choosing and learning so much about 10 different things. But if you just focus on one, coming back to our hope and dreams, focusing what is most important in your life, and where do you have a story to tell?
Right. Well, and this whole slowing down, it is really, really maybe even more impactful than we give it credit for. So the cerebral cortex of the brain is what takes information, right? So think about it. Right now, I can see you in my peripherals. I can see a beautiful Balinese backdrop. There's colors, white shirt. I'm processing so much information in a New York, in America, we call it a New York second. It's like a fraction, a millisecond, basically. The brain is processing an absorbent amount of information in every millisecond. And then we still have the ability to communicate, to consciously think. Think about the body. The heartbeat is working, the autonomic nervous system, all the parts of the internal physiology that's working on autopilot. Like, this is such an insane machine that is already doing things at a rapid pace. So this slowing down, when you journal and you write these things down, okay, this is why generating and creating goals and your ability to achieve them, one of the key aspects is obviously the thought. Right? Yeah. And then, which could be a hope or a dream, but then writing those down, it slows down the processing time because you can't write as fast as you think. So if you're constantly internalizing information, what could I do? Where could I go? How would this be? What would be the outcome? All you're doing is looping a series of thoughts that are going to get mixed in with the massive amount of other information that's being processed in the cerebral cortex of the brain. Yep. So by writing things down, you slow down the processing time. I even found that copying and pasting information, like things that I'm learning or training in, by copying and pasting it into like a Google Doc or reorganizing it, I slow down the processing time. But in the act of writing or copying and pasting and moving it over, you end up rereading the information multiple times. Okay, and the mind, the brain, the body doesn't like change. It likes repetition, it likes patterns. That's its safety zone. So what patterns are we implicating into our lives that are going to help us to achieve those goals? So this whole slowing down is actually a really, really important piece. But like we were talking about earlier, this internalization is, I believe, probably the dominant move for most people is we're constantly thinking about what to do, thinking about what we want, how we're going to do it. But that, in my opinion, isn't the full learning circuit, right? And so when we can verbalize, so if you think about something as a hope or a dream, you write it down, that slows down the processing time and it allows you to get more detail oriented, to find the little pieces of details that trigger an emotion. Everything we do is driven from an emotion. Yeah. So we want to tap into our emotional intelligence in regards to creating our reality, our hopes, our dreams. But then communicating it connects the mind and the body. So they are one. We're generally taught that the brain, the mind, the body are separate, right? And especially in like yogic traditions and the sutras, the mind and body are one. And when we communicate something out loud, our voice has a vibration and it carries a resonance. So when you start talking about a hope or a dream and even shifting it to the point of saying it as if it's already happened, you've already achieved it, then what happens is the body is going to start to recognize the resonance and the vibration of your words, and it's going to raise your feelings and emotions. If we're internalizing something, we're not creating this true mind-body connection to allow the emotion to get involved. But when we speak it out loud, that can trigger the endocrine system, the hormones and neurotransmitters that actually raise your vibrational energy. So I highly recommend, in my opinion, one thing I found really beneficial in my journey of hopes and dreams is communicating it out loud. And this can be in the comfort of your own home. I have thousands of videos on my phone that nobody will ever see. It's like my own diary, but it's how I communicate to figure things out and to let my body become in tune with what it is I'm trying to do or achieve, and then connect the thought to a feeling. And this is where you create this like really beautiful channel and your ability to like enhance its ability to be created.
Yeah, that's very beautiful, very powerful, and something I've experienced as well. And we were talking about this the other day, but about the Kaizen.
I was just thinking about that. I was like, Stephen, come on, bring this full circle. I want to talk about the Kaizen method. Go for it.
But it's so great because it's like sometimes we're not achieving something because we only celebrate the 100%, right? Yeah. And it's like, if you think of a long-term process, like publishing a book, or if you think of like doing a dancing competition or whatever's going on in my life or everyone else's life, like, you know, there's a long process of getting there, right? And it's like, it can get really hard throughout, and obviously you have to overcome obstacles, but actually not just celebrating the 100%, but the 1% step mark.
Yep.
Every step of the way, that's where you then connect to your thoughts and your feelings, and this is gonna like embrace what's going on in your life. And yeah, as you said, repetitive. Like, I was talking to my friend the other day, and she said, hey, like when I'm learning something, like I have to study it and I write it down on cards, and you got to find your own way how to do this. But so if I'm learning it today, it's 100% of I know, I remember. But then the next day, you'll only remember 90% of that. And the day after that, 80, then 70. So that's kind of 10% goes down every day. But let's say you were repeating what you've learned the day before, like especially the things that you're not really sure about, that will then pop into like 100% again. And then, you know, instead of just like slowly going down, you're just going to keep bringing that up. And I think, and things that we really want and love in our life, I think that's something where we got to just keep reminding ourselves and affirm that every day, like, hey, like let's bring it up to 100% again.
Well, and you're going to increase that if you communicate.
Yeah.
Because, again, those words and that intention or that thought is verbalized, and then the cells in our body have a memory. And when we verbalize something that is tied to a good feeling, something that makes us excited, then the memory of our muscles and our cells will actually absorb that information. So one way to really solidify a new pattern or belief system, yes, you can repeat it internally, and eventually you might get there. But if you want to expedite that process, communicate it out loud. Because what do? You bring in emotion.
Yeah.
And then boom, that's how it's increased.
Once I get hooked and excited about something, I'm like, I have 1,000% of doing that. I'm like, I have all these ideas, I get so creative, I'm like, let's do that. But then, you know, the second you start thinking about it too much, and just the second you just start waiting a couple of days, you know, like your motivation goes down. And I think while you're in that period of like absolute pure excitement, and that's when it's most raw at its idea as well, that's when you should do what you want to do.
Man, strike while the iron's hot kind of concept, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Well, and this is happening to me right now, actually. So we all have ups and downs. We're human, right? We can't expect, like social media and social conditioning portrays this being happy all the time. And it's like the perfect lighting and everything is organized and it's beautiful, but we're only getting glimpses and pieces into other people's lives through social media, right? But most of those people are quite miserable. They're going through a lot of hardships that they never expose because they don't want to be seen as weak or actually as human. And I love talking and sharing about these things because we have ups and down days. We have good days, we have bad days. We're happy sometimes and then we're sad sometimes. But that's duality, polarity. We wouldn't know joy unless we had experienced sadness, suffering, right? Without light, there is no dark. We wouldn't know good unless there was evil. It's the balance of the world and the universe, right? And right now, the last few days, my God, visions that I've had, even spontaneous random visions. Like, I'm not even talking, I'm going super deep into trying to, visualize this or get really tuned in on it. But I've had this dream and passion about building a secondary phase of my course, The Art of Guiding Meditations in that business. But I was waiting for the right moment that it showed itself. And out of nowhere, the last 3 days, I mean, people are coming to me asking for exactly what I wanted to be able to provide for other people. I'm like, okay. And then I set another intention. I was like, I really want to help somebody build an online course. The guy messaged me yesterday and I got on a call and he was like, Steven, I want to hire you to help me build an online course. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. And then I brought on a specialist to do a talk for my community and my network of facilitators. And so things are manifesting so fast right now. And I know that this isn't always going to last forever. Right now there's a high. So, because I'm aware, self-awareness is really important. Be aware of your surrounding, of your current state, what you think and feel, what other people are doing and going through, and not from a place of judgment, but curiosity. The more you can increase that level of self-awareness, the more you can ride the waves and use them. So right now, I'm on a manifestation high wave. So I'm going to start just doing as much as I possibly can. Like what we're doing right now. It was like, go. Anything I can do, I'm going for it. I'm launching workshops, webinars, events, because right now is when it's really manifesting. And obviously we're manifesting all the time, right? We're always creating our reality whether we know it or not. But I can see an heightened increased state of the ability right now, for whatever reason. I don't need to know the why, but I'm going to write it and know that there will probably come a time, who knows, it could be tomorrow, it could be in a month, it could be in a year, but there's going to be a lull. And at that lull, I'm then going to move into a different state. And that different state maybe is more of a nurturing state, where I slow down and I nurture these things that I have now created or manifested or that are coming into my life. But man, when it's high, take action. Fucking go. And it's like I think about it like a squirrel. Right? A squirrel.
Love that.
Yeah? So it's like gather up all the nuts so that we can store them for hibernation, for winter, right?
That's so great.
And then when in hibernation in winter, we get cozy, we get, the body slows down, everything slows down. So if all these nuts are our hopes and our dreams, our opportunities, and we take an action on all those and we put them in motion. So emotions are just energy in motion. And the ability to manifest is very emotionally based. So when there's a heightened emotion, there's a heightened state of manifestation skills. So then we want to take that energy in motion and ride that wave, gobble that up. And then when that energy shifts, then we nurture those things and we put them into place and we give them the focus and attention it needs to actually create. You know what I mean? I don't know, what are your thoughts?
No, I love that. I love that you said the squirrel thing, because that's always a thing that apparently Germans can't say that. So it's always
say it.
Squirrel.
What?
Squirrel.
No. You're kidding me, right? That's the cutest thing I've ever heard.
I can't.
Squirrel?
Squirrel. Anyway, I'm just saying, so that was pretty funny.
It's amazing. Thank you for sharing that with me. You could have hidden 100%. That.
But I'm I had to say it.
Unfucking muted, right?
Yeah, I know, but... so now there's so much thought in that, and I love that. I think it's honestly all about once you have the idea, do it and go for it. And I think it's all about having the people in your life also encouraging you as well. I think it's you have to know within yourself that's what you're going to do and you're going to go for it. But just having the right people in your life that are not going to tear you down, they're going to uplift you in what you're doing. And I think what you said before, about suffering, you have to have suffering to have joy. And I think there's so much in that as well. People constantly want a dopamine hit, and there's so much that life is giving us and providing for us that just feels let's just get another hit and hit and hit. And I think I've just realized how unhealthy that is. And I think for me, there's now this season where I'm I want to be content within the downsides and the slow moments and the moments where I don't have dopamine hits in my life, where that's where real growth is going to come in. And I think I just feel how it's going to be done, it's sitting with yourself and through meditation or whatever it is. And it's you're going to learn to embrace the feelings that you're having. And I think that's going to give you courage that whatever happens, life's going to get stronger. I sometimes have this, I'm very visual and very creative, but thinking of this tree, right? If life is easy and rain's going to drop and the tree's going to grow and everything's going to be beautiful and whatnot. But there's not much roots, right? And it's when you're going through suffering or if you're going through hardships, then that's when your roots are going to grow deeper, right? And it's maybe your tree's not looking as beautiful because it's a dry season in your life, but once these roots are growing deeper and going to the source in the water, which is I find in God and myself, Like that's where the next storm is going to come and the tree is not going to fall over. You know what I mean? Like there's so much about like embracing that time that's hard, but like choosing that and not needing to find happiness every day. And I think there's a big difference between happiness and joy too. I think joy is something that's, you know, you're finding contentment and that's something that's here, versus happiness is just like you just find, you know, you hit your toe or you have a cup of coffee and like it varies like a lot throughout the day. But like I want to get more to the state where I'm like I'm feeling joy and simplicity.
Well, and the ups and downs yeah, I believe joy is a bit of a higher level than happiness.
Yeah.
Happiness is kind of momentary.
Yeah.
And joy is more of a state of being. And I heard you say multiple times contentment.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I want to challenge you on this. I really, really don't like that word. And I think this is my own perspective. I had a friend of mine that he would always say he was content. He was content. And this might be a trauma that I have or a conditioning of opinion and perspective. So like, don't take this out of context.
Yeah.
But his content was it was good enough. And he struggled in so many ways in his job, his relationships, his career, I mean, his own self-worth. He constantly struggled. And I think that he got to the point where he kept saying he was content because he had almost been burned so many times, or things didn't go the way that he wanted, or people betrayed him so much that he was like, it's just good enough. But fuck that.
Nah.
No, it's like being accepting into the what you have, who you are, like that is a form of good enough. But like I always feel like this is a little bit of the ego. I think it's very important to have a bit of ego because that's what drives us forward. It's what makes us innovative. But having a little bit of that ego makes us always want to better ourselves a little bit more. And it's not the attachment or desire to more money, more material, more sex, more drug, whatever, but just a hint of it. So check this out. I realized once that, you know this...
Yeah, I've got so much to say on that.
Oh my god. So do you know this saying, becoming the best version of yourself?
Yeah.
And I think it couldn't be more bullshit than any other like phrase. And I'm going to go ahead and insert my own opinion in here. So it's a marketing tactic from coaches in the health and wellness industry. So if I'm going to help you become the best version of yourself, let's say I'm a coach, I'm marketing, join my course, I'm going to help you become the best version of yourself. What is that implying?
That you're not good enough, is it?
Exactly.
But I think what's the biggest issue at the moment, I think in society, there's so many words thrown around, like love and contentment, but I think people are adopting these words without knowing what they really mean.
Through experiences.
Exactly.
You know?
And everyone looks through life through like a different framework. Everyone experiences things differently. Like, give me an example. Like, if someone has had a traumatic accident, he's or she's going to feel like another accident is going to like drive that person more inclined to be panicking, versus another person like, oh, that wasn't that close. But I think what it is, adapting these words, we actually got to understand our ontology. Like, what's the nature of our reality? Like, and the epistemology of like, why do we believe what we believe? And I think that's what I've been learning recently and studying as well. I'm like, why do I believe these certain things? And I think it's so easy when you grow up, especially in my German culture. I feel like I've been raised to like, that's what you believe, and you don't ask why.
Right. It's religion. If you do this, you go to heaven. If you do that, go to hell. If you question it, then you're questioning faith.
But it's more like in general in life, like anything, I'd be like, it's like we got to understand, and like if you don't have any critical thinking, like what are we even doing? Like, I want to understand like where, like how do I get to this point of believing that and not believing everything that I've heard. Like, you got to filter through information of like what you actually know and like why, and like figuring out what's helpful for you. And I think like, you know, if it comes back to like being with yourself and like understanding, hey, actually contentment and being the better version, like I think for me, I understand totally your point. Because
Challenge it, though.
We're not saying, like, it's basically saying you're not good enough. And I think there's such a fine line between, because I always challenge myself. It's one of my fundamental needs, like growth and challenge, right? So I always challenge myself in anything that I do. And for me, I found it was more of an unhealthy aspect, because I just felt like I couldn't be good enough. I couldn't just sit.
There's always more.
I know.
More.
And I think there's this beautiful saying of like, I don't need to strive. I can just abide sometimes. I think sometimes you just got to be and be okay with that.
Yeah.
And like, hey, actually, like, I'm proud of myself. And I think there's so many, there's a good ego and a bad ego. And I think you have to have a good ego about like, hey, I'm proud of where I have come from. And I think, so many times you compare yourself to people that have started life at like 0, right? Or +1 or +100. Versus other people have experienced traumas and other things in their life. They started their life at -100. Like you can't...
No one starts their life at -100 though. So we're actually all the same, right? We've all had a moment of fear and courage, love and heartbreak, success and failure.
True.
So actually this has really helped me understand, because you're dropping bombs right now and I love it. But we're always comparing and sizing ourselves up and trying to even the scale or give compassion and empathy for somebody that has a different scale. Now, everyone's journey and individual experiences are going to be different, but if you look at it from the whole of, fear and courage, love and heartbreak, success and failure, everybody is the same. And it really helped me understand that actually all of us are not different. And that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
but I think it's like people process things differently. And I do understand. I do think that when you experience things when you're a kid, that's going to impact your adult life so much. And some people have had a happy childhood growing up. Other people had hardships. And I think that's what I meant with like sometimes you got to see the process. Where have I come from? What have I overcome? Rather than, I'm not the same as that person. Or I wish I could do that and that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But whereas it's like, actually, I've come such a long way.
And I mean, this is just a good reminder to give yourself a sense of self-worth, appreciation. Yeah. But I had a Buddhist teacher. He ended up becoming quite a close friend. And I did a lot of emotional healing work with him. He has an approach that he's created with 20 years of, teaching and learning in Buddhism of how to let go of emotional pain, right? We're just stored with emotional pains of all these different experiences. And I was always trying to attach to the why. Why do I have sadness? Why is there anger about being sad? Why is there a pain of hurt or fear? You know what I mean? These are just pains or stored emotions. And he looked at me one day and he goes, be careful with the why. I said, why?
I love that.
Yeah. And he goes, Stephen, do you really care where it came from, or would you rather it just go away? And I'm like, I'd rather go away. He goes, then stop thinking about the why and focus on, because if we're thinking about why, what we're doing is we're not bringing our attention to the actual pain. If we soften into the pain, it bring metta. In Buddhism, it's called metta. It's unconditional love, right? So if you soften into a pain that you have, you explore that there is a sadness somewhere in the body, right? And you start softening, and you're going to start to feel that pain actually rise up, and you might have a bit of an emotional release. But if you're trying to figure out the why, then you're not bringing the full attention to the actual emotional pain. And I feel like it's so true. What happened? Where have I come from? What's going on? How did I get here? All of these are forms of why that are actually stopping us from being so grateful in this present that
and
we are here now.
Forward.
Exactly. And the other thing that he told me too was, I just lost it. I just lost it. You'll
remember. But I think a big part of this is, I think sometimes we can dwell in things too long, right? If you're trying to work through something, and I believe it's really important to work through your stuff and, and understanding and emotions, because as you said, your body holds trauma. But I think sometimes we dwell in that too long, and we let the past define our future. And I think that's where we have to say, hey, actually, this is something that I want to let go of, and I'm going to move forward. And like, I think there's a period, like a fine line again between like, hey, I'm going to work through this, but I'm going to move on. I'm going to let this stuff behind. And I think that's where people often get stuck, because they can't let go of that emotion, and they identify themselves within that rather than choosing to let go.
Well, again, the mind and the body don't like change. So the more you get to the point of change, you're going to feel the claws dig in.
And it's hard and it's uncomfortable.
Right. And
People
have you ever
don't like
noticed that like, right as you're about to make a change, you will self-sabotage
Yes.
by tenfold. And
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
the body and mind's last stand to try and keep you in the state that you're in.
In that safety,
So get
you know?
excited when the claws are in and you're making
Yeah.
really bad choices after the point where you're about to make a change, and then all of a sudden you start regressing, right? You start taking steps backwards. Get fucking excited about that.
Yeah.
Because you're showing yourself in that moment, oh, I'm about to make the full shift. But of course the mind body are going to try keep
Yes.
you there. But that means that you're about at the shifting point. So just keep going. Just keep going. And another interesting thing, like, I'm talking about pains and moving through them and acceptance. I just remembered what I was about to say. So
love that.
we're always focused on pain. So humans are innately going to look at the negative in things rather than the positive. Have you ever... I mean, this is statistically shown, but have you ever noticed that?
It's actually one negative thought. You have to have 10 positive thoughts to make up for it. Isn't that crazy?
Well, and it makes sense, though, in regards to... Think about the tribes people.
Yeah.
1,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay? They were living in the jungle, out of caves, and they were constantly looking out in a state of fear for a lion or a tiger or a bear to attack them and kill their family. They were constantly on a state of high alert.
Yeah, fight or flight.
Exactly. Okay, well, the amygdala part of our brain is what deals with survival and part of our ego as well, right? Well, think about as humans evolved and the brain evolved, even the body structure and the evolution of humanity, okay, well, that fear response and that looking out for something to go wrong at all moments is part of the evolution of the development of the amygdala part of our brain. So guys, it's not your fault that you look at the negative in things, but we have the ability in the 21st century to actually alter and change the state of our brain through neuroplasticity, creating new neural pathways and imprints. So it's okay, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? But people are prone to look at the wrong, the negative, or the bad that will happen. And as we're all just trying to grow and better ourselves in any way, shape, or form, right? Even though we may be going in the opposite direction, we're innately, we want to be happy. We want to be good, right? Well, instead of focusing on the pain or the emotion, bring your awareness to the attitude behind it.
That's good, yeah.
So if you feel sad and you can't seem to get that sadness to dissipate or go away, then bring your awareness to the attitude behind being sad. Are you frustrated that you're sad? Are you angry that you're fearful? And then if you can soften into the attitude, then generally that's what sticks the pain in and doesn't allow us to get rid of it, is because we never bring any attention to the attitude behind it. And this changed the game for me completely.
I want to challenge you into evolution. I have a bit of different view on that, but before, but what I want to say though, I think sometimes we don't know how to name emotions. You know what I mean? I think sometimes we feel anger, or sometimes we feel, but we don't actually, anger isn't like the core emotion of what we're feeling. There's something underlying between that, and I think that's what we kind of want to get to. And I think as well, like everyone, as you said, like we want good attention, you know, like everyone is striving for, you know, being good. And I think what I teach my kids, I teach children, so it was interesting. There was this kid and he was like acting out a lot, being, having a lot of like negative thoughts and things he said, and we were just playing and being silly. And I was thinking, I'm like, hey, like, I want to like reverse my thought challenge and process with that kid. So I'm like, obviously I could tell that he's not getting attention, so he's trying that in a negative way. So I'm thinking, well, I'm going to say to him, hey, look, I don't like the way that you're acting right now, but I see that you want to get attention. I trust you to step up and be a leader for your group because I trust that you can do that. You have not, this kid has changed 180 degrees. I cannot tell you, like, this kid has transformed into, like, guys, we gotta be quiet. Come on, let's put the chairs under. Let's treat, and this kid is 6 years old. You know what I'm saying? I think sometimes, and what I love with kids, they're so authentic, and, coming back to simplicity, like, it's so simple sometimes. I think sometimes we gotta, when we talk with people, it's like, it's the same as like talking to kids sometimes. Right. But like I think that's where the emotions and everything is like coming from. We have to like, focus on the positive and get that reaffirmed. And like the more we do something, the more our like pathways are gonna change. But we have to do it to actually change that path.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, and it's interesting too, because I'd be willing to bet, pure speculation, I'd be willing to bet that kid was always being told what to do, like by his parents or his
what not
peers,
to do,
and what not to do, exactly. And once you gave him the opportunity to show leadership, to show an expression, there's a good chance he's not allowed to express himself.
Yeah.
No, you need to do this. Don't cry.
Yeah.
And again, it's probably not even done intentionally by a parent, but once you give people an opportunity to step into that role and they do, then you find that your entire life can change.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. We are our own teachers.
Yeah.
So give yourself the opportunity to be a leader.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean leader like in business or communities. It's just that you are taking the conscious choice to make decisions and actions that you want outside of the social conditioning that's taught you to act, react, look, talk in a certain way.
Yeah. I was going to actually say that as well. Like, let's challenge yourself and give us space to step into something better, something bigger, and not limit ourselves to, hey, like, we can't do that and that. And sometimes I think the kids are not being told what to do instead as well. They're like, don't do this, but they don't know what to do instead. And I think for us, let's give ourselves just space to step into a new opportunity and not hold ourselves back and limit us.
Can I drop the mic? That was amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah.
And wow, what an electric conversation.
I know.
You have a lot to share, and I think that everybody else does. And you are acting as an inspiration and a role model that when you think something, you want something, then you can just do it and then see what happens later.
100%. And I'm very excited to see what Unread it's going to turn into. As of 5 minutes ago, this is real and this is happening. So thanks so much for being on here.
Of course. Come here.
So good.